How long does it take to heal emotionally? It's a huge question that I get all the time. When clients start working with me, they want to know how long the journey will take before they can really feel like they're living their lives again. Because seriously, the worst part of emotional pain is not knowing when it's going to end. The fear that the pain that you're in will last forever and that there's no way out is torturous. And when you've tried so many things to heal, like therapy, medications, meditation, whatever, and nothing has worked, it starts feeling like nothing is ever going to change, and that hopelessness makes the problem 10 times worse. But no matter how bad a state of depression or anxiety might get, if you could know with absolute certainty that a month from now, a year from now, you'd be feeling good again and life would be wonderful, then you wouldn't experience as much fear around the pain that you're in right now, and you'd be that much more willing and able to go through the distress that you're in that moment with a sense of calm around it, a sense of trust. And that's why one of the biggest questions that people tend to ask is, how long does it take to heal emotionally? Because they need to have that hope, that end goal, that light at the end of the tunnel, and I absolutely get that. Now, I've got good news and bad news for you about that question. The good news is that emotional healing doesn't need to take half as long as you think, especially if you've been at this for years, wondering why nothing has worked, thinking that if you've already been trying for years, then it must mean that it will take you many more years before you ever feel better, if that ever happens. But that's not the case. Progress can happen quickly, sometimes even instantaneously, but even if we're going to go on a proper healing journey to get this done, the fact that it's taken years so far doesn't mean that it needs to take years in the future. It just means that you haven't been going about things in the most effective way. So that's the good news. The bad news is that the question isn't really an accurate reflection of the appropriate answer. And the healing isn't going to happen on its own. There's an old expression that time heals all wounds. And I'm sorry to say, but that is absolutely false. At least, time alone does not truly heal emotional wounds. People say that time heals all wounds because after a certain amount of time, the pain does seem to fade a bit and you think less and less about the specific trauma event that caused your pain in the first place. But that's not quite the same as healing. That's kind of more of a memory issue, really. You just kind of forget about the source of the pain a little bit, and you kind of lose track of how that specific trauma event is causing you problems or how the defense mechanisms that you've built up around it are getting in the way of your life. So as you move on, there are other things that fill up your mind, and you start to lose track of the connection between the trauma event and your defense mechanisms and your ongoing pain. But that doesn't mean that it healed. If anything, it just means that it has scabbed over. The wound has scabbed over, but there's still a deep problem there. I like to say that time doesn't heal the wound, it just numbs the nerves around it so that you don't feel it as much. After some time, you won't notice the specifics and the details of the wound as much. The source of the wound won't hurt as much, but there is still a deep injury there that will continue to cause problems in your life, and it is those problems and it is those symptoms that you will continue to notice, even though you won't notice how they are connected to the initial wound. As a kind of different example, I've sprained my ankle several times in my life, and it never healed properly. Now, most of the time, I don't notice it. I can walk, and I'm not in pain, but as soon as I jog for more than a minute or two, I start to notice the pain. Even when I just drive for more than 20 to 30 minutes, the constant pressure on my ankle from pressing the pedals starts to bring up the pain. Point being, my ankle hasn't healed. I mean, it certainly healed a little bit from the time that I sprained it and couldn't walk for a few days, but it would be far from accurate to say that it ever properly healed. And that's the same thing that happens with your emotional wounds if you don't treat them properly. They sort of get a little better. You don't notice the pain as much, but the wound is still there, just waiting to come back up as soon as you do something to trigger it. So for my ankle, if I had gone to physiotherapy immediately after spraining my ankle each time, and had I done the work, it probably would have healed more and I wouldn't have these ongoing problems as much. But I didn't. And the same with your emotional pain. The longer that you wait after experiencing emotional trauma, the harder it becomes to fully deal with it. It's not impossible. You can absolutely still deal with it, even if the thing that caused your pain happened 30 years ago. But it does become a little harder to bring it up intentionally for healing. But like I said, don't worry, it's not impossible. There is indeed plenty of amazing progress that we can make with some pretty simple methods. But just know that the absence of pain in the moment doesn't mean that the underlying wound has truly healed. Now, how exactly do we heal it? Well, that's a topic for another time. You can feel free to check out my other videos like the step-by-step guide to emotional fitness or how to handle any trigger for more details on the nitty-gritty of how we go about this. For now, in this video, I just want to focus on this question of how long does it take? So, here's the ultimate problem with that question. The question seems to imply two things. Firstly, it implies that there is a set amount of time that it takes to heal emotional wounds. It implies that there is an answer that can be given to people to account for all kinds of pain, like, for example, a broken bone. As a general rule, a doctor might say that the cast needs to be on for, 4 to 8 weeks to properly set a bone. Or they may give some guidelines that it's X amount of time for a 14-year-old who's still growing, but a different amount of time for an 80-year-old. Now, I can give you a basic timeline by telling you that most of my clients see significant results in their lives and in their healing within 8 to 12 weeks. In that time, they tend to see more progress by doing the proper skills and tools in healing. They tend to see more progress in these methods than they do in years of therapy. So 8 to 12 weeks is a timeline that you can count on to start noticing significant differences in your life if you're doing the healing properly. My clients start to feel better and see the world differently. They rebuild their relationships with themselves and their emotions and their family. There is an undeniable difference from the first day to the end of those 12 weeks, if they do the work, of course. But nonetheless, each and every one of them has a unique journey. And to say that they are healed in that time would be a little disingenuous. Which brings me to the second issue, with the question of how long does it take to heal? And before I actually tell you what the problem is here and move on to the second point, I'd actually like your opinion. When you ask the question of how long does it take to heal emotionally, I want to know, what does the word healing actually mean to you? Like, how would you know when you're healed? How would you measure it? Where's the line, and what would have to be different in your life to know that you've finally healed, to know that you did it? So please take a moment, even pause this video for a second, and let me know in the comments, what does healing mean to you? I would really love to hear your thoughts. Because here's the thing. The big problem with the question of how long does it take to heal emotionally is that it assumes that healing is a clear-cut thing. Like one day you're wounded and another day you're healed. Kind of going back to the broken bone thing, there's a certain amount of time after which you could take an x-ray and see that the bone has fused itself back together. Mainly, let's say. Maybe not perfectly. Maybe there will still be visible signs of an old injury like a bone scar. I don't know if that's a thing. But theoretically, with enough time, there will be significant enough healing for the doctor to say, yeah, that's done healing, and it's time for the cast to come off. Emotional healing doesn't necessarily work like that. In fact, as you probably know by now, I like to refer to my approach to mental health as emotional fitness training, very specifically because I believe our mental health is more akin to fitness training than it is to healing. If you ask, how long does it take to heal from something? It's because you're looking at that thing that you're trying to heal from as something very specific, with which there is a start date and an end date, and very specific observable signs of when that wound is gone or done or healed. But what if we were to look at it more in terms of fitness training? Like, what if you are overweight and you ask a trainer, how long does it take to become fit? Well, what does that question even mean? What does fit mean to you? It's all relative, isn't it? If you're 300 pounds right now, will you consider being 200 pounds as being fit? Or do you need to be able to fit back into your prom dress before you consider yourself fit? And what about muscle growth? After all, losing weight isn't the only factor to being fit. So we have to consider how athletic you want to be. And then what about medical fitness? If you're strong and slim, but you're suffering from chronic illness, are you fit? What's your definition? And what if you're comparing yourself to bodybuilders? What counts as fit then? Are you just trying to be fit compared to a regular person, or are you trying to be bodybuilder level fitness? And maybe most importantly, is there ever any end goal to fitness? Does anyone ever go to the gym for a year and accomplish their goal in the sense that they can stop going now? It's not like painting a portrait where eventually you put on the last brushstroke and the painting is now done and never needs to be touched again. There is no end to becoming fit specifically, nor is there an end to becoming emotionally fit. You can be relatively more fit than you were before. You can be fit enough to avoid being triggered by things that used to bother you, or fit enough to do things that you didn't used to be able to do because you now have the confidence and self-assurance and trust and peace inside of you. But there's no real such thing as being finished. There is no limit to how emotionally healed and fit you can become. At least, not unless you attain Buddhahood or become truly like Christ or something like that. But none of us will ever achieve that. It's an ideal that is beyond what any one of us can achieve. Point being, emotional healing, in the sense of getting over the deep wounds that are holding you back so that you can live a life beyond what you currently think is possible for yourself, that can start happening within a few weeks. It can start truly settling in to being the core of your being within a few months, and it can reach peaks beyond what you would imagine for yourself within a year, and it can continue to change your life for years to come with never-ending progress and growth until the day you die. You will keep getting better, keep getting stronger, keep getting healthier, keep getting more peaceful and more loving. But is there ever any point at which you can say, with a sense of finality, that you are healed? Well, I don't really think so. You can get to a point where you can say that you're fit, but you can always become fitter. But at what point do you say that you're healed? Well, I think it's hard to put a line on that. Still, if you want help achieving genuine emotional fitness so that you can experience the benefits of living without fear and without the weight of your old wounds holding you down and getting in the way of your life, head to my website, www.benjisharercoaching.com, because like I said, we can get you more results in the next 12 weeks than most people see in years of therapy. Head to the website, learn a little bit more, and schedule a call with me. We'll talk about it. And don't forget to let me know in the comments, what does healing mean to you? I would really love to hear your thoughts, and you can also tell me what you're trying to heal from, if you like. Lastly, if you want to learn more about the how of emotional healing, check out this video over here where I'll go over the step-by-step approach that my clients have used for the last 8 years to transform their moments of emotional distress into moments of healing and strengthening. That's what emotional fitness is all about. So, click the thumbnail, and I'll see you there.